What's up, everybody? Jeff in Control Robinson here in another video. It's been too long, but I'm going to do a video on my Tyranids tournament list at 2,000 points. This is, of course, post-Codex, and I'm just going to break it down, talk all about it, talk about my experience with it so far. And then I just generally want to open this up to your criticisms. I would love it if you guys would point check this. I'm very sure that it is on point, but I've made mistakes in the past. So one of the best ways to go ahead and make sure I'm playing a legal list is have you guys take a look at it and let me know what you think. There's some coffee in the background. Classic. Anyway, so we're going to talk about this, and then in general, I want to also open this up as an opportunity for you guys to let me know what you think about your lists. So you can either post them in the comments, although that's not super great on YouTube, or you can send them to my email. I'll put that in the description. And if you email those to me, I will either respond back at least with just what I think about it, or I may include it in a future video. I said that last time, and I think we did go over some lists. In fact, I'm pretty sure we have a video of that. But other people didn't get their list reviewed, and I want to make everyone happy. So if you send me a list, I will at least back my feedback and thought process on it. I'm not going to point check it. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff, but I'm going to just take a look at it and talk about what I think about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this real quick and take a look at my list. So full on janky here. We're just going to just like this, and you guys can just see my list here in the corner. There's some overlay stuff, so even let me just do it like this. Is top-notch production quality right here. I hope you guys are mega impressed. You are. But that is the whole list, so let's talk about it kind of top to bottom. It's a brigade. It is all KRONOS. That is something that a lot of people, it's Hivefleet KRONOS rather, so there's a lot of people that kind of feel that you need to be mixing fleets to have a competitive Tyranid list. I don't think they're wrong. I think a lot of the Hivefleets are super, super amazingly good. I think, generally speaking, people agree that if you could put like Biovores and Hiveguard with a couple of Neurothropes into a either spearhead or even a battalion for KRONOS, and then mix that in with something like a Kraken or Jormunder, I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, maybe Behemoth, some of that kind of stuff, then you're talking about a really good list. I don't disagree with him, but I look at my list, and I don't really think of it as a weaker or worse list. And I'll kind of get into that. Probably, actually, I'll just do it now. I think Brigade and high command points is super mega important for Tyranids. I think they have some incredibly good uses for shooting twice. Comes to mind. So a unit of 6 Hiveguard shooting twice is 24 strength 8 -2 shots, not needing line of sight, ignoring cover, and at range 36. That's just absolutely incredible. They're really accurate in KRONOS. They're really accurate in general, hitting on 3s, but in KRONOS you're rerolling 1s as long as they didn't move before. So very, very powerful. You'll want to do that 2 or 3 times, and that's 4 or 6 command points that we're talking. Very expensive. But then there's some other cool things in there as well. If you're doing screen stuff with like Termigons, Caustic Blood is absolutely massive. You're talking about 5 or 6 on average. You know how those rolls go. Sometimes you get like 10. Mortal Wounds is something that it would otherwise just be trading out a screen unit that's very inexpensive. One of the best in the game at this point in time. And then there's some other good ones. Like I always run Swarmlord because I absolutely love him. In this list, he actually... I'll talk about his role when I get to him in a second here, but you can see that he has a lot less utility, and there's actually less of an argument to kind of list, at least at face value, because there's no Gene Stealers for him to be taxing up the field. There's no big scary unit or anything like that. I don't have a pod to deliver him in. So I'll talk a lot about him. I'll probably spend a lot of time on that. But my point is the stratagem where he can reroll to wound in close combat is massive when he's fighting against like a Mortarion or Magnus. And then his ability to swing twice is also really good. Especially if he gets off the charge and swinging first, he's pretty reliably dropping down a big baddie 1, maybe 2 tiers. Get really luckier if you soften him up with some shots before that. So then all of a sudden we're talking about a Swarmlord jumping in there and doing some pretty massive damage. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, the point is stratagems can get command points can get really expensive with Terran. So I think going at least 2 battalions and then something. So we're talking about 9, 10, 11 command points. I have 12 with the brigade. is almost mandatory. So if you are doing the mixed Hivefleet, best not be doing like a battalion, a couple of spearheads or something weird like that. Like, yes, the kill power is really nice, but man, are you missing out if you don't have at least 10 command points. That's part of the reason why, this is a very long-winded answer, of course, but this is why I really enjoy KRONOS. And I'm not minding running a single Hivefleet. I'm not also going to look you in the eye and say KRONOS is head and shoulder better than the other Hivefleets. I also don't believe that to be true. I really am enjoying the Tyranid Codex in the sense that I think you could very happily run Kraken, KRONOS, and Jormungandr has some really cool in particular. I know people are in love with some of the other aspects. Oregon and Behemoth have some pretty cool as well. But I think the forefront is definitely Kraken and definitely KRONOS commonly. But I'm loving the single brigade. I think it's totally fine. So I'd love to hear your guys' comments on this and what you think about it. But let's just go ahead and get into the list itself. And then I'm going to talk about my experience with it and kind of each unit. So 4 HQ slots, Swarmlord, 2 Neurothropes, and a Tervigon. The Tervigon it's just bare bones, so Stinger Salvo and Massive Scything Talons, I believe it is. 4 units of Rippers, 2 units of Termagants at max with 130, and then 3 Mucloids for your fast attack. Absolutely incredible. Talk a lot about this in a second, but it's your cheapest fast attack options, but I'm in love with them. And then 3 units of 3 Biovores, 1 unit of 6 Hiveguard, 1 unit of 3 Hiveguard. And then they have Toxin Sacs, but it's just because I had 9 points left over, and it's guys. I'm like, all right, whatever. I was gonna give Adrenaline and Toxin Sacs at the Tervigon, but it's definitely throwaway points. My list is basically 1,991 points, and then 9 points of like, I guess. If you have better ideas on how to spend those points or something like that, let me know too. I'd love to hear it. And then rounding out the elite choices is 1 unit of 4 Venomthropes. And boy, am I going to talk a lot about this, because this is going to be my big selling point. So just going down the line, I'll spend less time on some and more time on others. I think the very easy snap call to tell you about in the HQ slot is the Neurothropes. Everyone knows about this. 70 points of very durable, 5 wounds, tough 4, 3++. Smite little beacons, basically. They get wounds back if they kill any models with Smite. I like to kit them both out with Scream as well. And just basically use them as deny beacons. I make one of these my Warlord so that I can just shove it forward and say, against a Psyker heavy army. Really make them worried about that KRONOS Warlord trait where they take D3 more to kill a Psyker check. And then I actually have found that these guys are pretty incredible at, like, throw them into a unit of Obliterators, tie them up. I will make those 3-ups. Have, tough 4, 5 wounds is fairly durable. Obviously, if you throw them into any kind of dedicated melee unit or heavy DACA unit, you're gonna fail 5 3-ups. It goes, but they're pretty cool at holding down otherwise hard hitting, fewer attack units. So it's something to kind of think about. And with a fly roll, they can disengage on your turn and start moving around and doing other things if you like as well. They don't have any shooting. You're not really interested in their headbutt for their charge. They have 1 attack, so it's just kind of cool utility that way. The Tervigon is obviously there to regenerate the Termagants, but I find that hugely important in 8th edition. You will lose Termagants. A lot of units that hit them are going to hit them for like 20 guys dead in a single volley. But it's a huge burden for a lot of people looking at a Termagant unit of 30 to be like, well, I got to kill all of them to stop the Tervigon from doing anything. And if you're smart about your spacing, and not only are they a fantastic screen unit now in line with conscripts and everybody else, there's a lot of utility there. So you can tie up units and then kill them and like chops the head off of 10 or 11 of them. You pick up the 10 or 11 that are around him, and then on your turn regenerate 10 more and put them back into combat. And kind of go back and forth that way. It's also great in ITC because it's really hard to get Reaper off of this. My list has 2 units that are over 10. That's the 2 Termagant units at 30. Yes, you can get 4 points of Reaper off of me, but you'd have to kill more than probably 60 Termagants. Not the most ideal thing. And the Tervigon is what does that. The Tervigon, by the way, is another Smite battery. Just have her sit in the back. And gets close, you cast Smite. I usually give her Catalyst in case the Swarmlord dies in the late game. Oftentimes your Tervigon is still standing, by the way. People don't shoot Tervigons. They don't. If you're kind of an idiot and you basically beg them to shoot it, they will. But at 14 wounds, tough 8, 3+ save, it's not the best target, and it survives a lot of times. It's not really hitting anybody. People don't actually, at least in practice for me so far, they don't think of it in terms of like kill the Tervigon, then the Termigons. Termigons are usually up in their face, popping off little shots and occupying objectives, so they're kind of the thing that begs to die first. So give it Catalyst so that later in the game it can just be that really clutch, final boss of sorts. And then the Swarmlord. So the Swarmlord is one of those things that in my list, a lot of people, especially like high-level power gaming tournament players, would look and be like, well, that's suboptimal. I don't understand it. It doesn't have a Tyrannocyte. It's not a melee list. I'm not using it to boost up Gene Stealers or anything like that. I've done the Gene Stealers. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. There's no argument. You're not going to hear some magical argument from me where I'm and Swarmlord are terrible. Nope, they're great. But what I like about the Swarmlord is kind of the middle linebacker in the back of my army. My army is otherwise a Tyranid gun line, right? It's got Biovores and Hiveguard as the major damage dealers here. And then I screen you off and I go out and get objectives with Rippers. So that's kind of the basic gist of my army. The Swarmlord hides behind that screen and jumps forward at tremendous speed. It can move if you want to risk trying to get Onslaught off. It moves 18 inches plus 2d6, and then it can still charge, potentially. If you don't want to try for Onslaught, then it's just 18 inches. Still makes it one of the most mobile damn things in the game. And then when it hits something, it hits them hard. 6 attacks of you're going to die, a tail attack of, okay, that's kind of nice, and then if you really need to clean up chafe, you can swing again. It's also very defensible, and this is probably, for me, my favorite quality of the Swarmlord. 4+ invul, tough 7, 12 wounds. That's just Tyrant, so that's not super amazing. I almost always put Catalyst on it. And then you have a stratagem to regenerate D3 back. So, am I giving up Kingslayer? Yes. But the Swarmlord is almost always in the thick of things. It occupies a lot of attention, so I keep the -1 on it for the part. And now we're talking about a very difficult model to bring down, but people cannot get enough of it. It's just, every time I just drop that little Swarmlord out there, they're like, oh, I gotta shoot it, oh, the Swarmlord. And it's great, because Warlord in the ITC missions right now doesn't really matter. In fact, like I said, most of my games, the Swarmlord is not the Warlord. Built-in Warlord trait is really not that cool for me, especially when KRONOS is so good. So it's just something that they have to deal with. It's probably giving up Kingslayer, but in every one of my games, it's absolutely been worth it. If not for its defense, then for its offense, but certainly when you consider it together. There's a lot of people that look at the Swarmlord and they go, well, if you don't have a Tyrannocyte, what's stopping people from targeting it and just nuking it off the table? I have, I'll tell you what, if you're playing in 8th edition against somebody where they can line up like 9 last cannons and Gilliman and see your Swarmlord, there's nothing you can do about it, then you're playing on a bad table. If you're not putting the Swarmlord somewhere where it's behind line of sight, or you're just doing whatever you can to get it as defensible as possible, then you kind of deserve to lose. Probably shouldn't run a model like that. But in my game so far, with 9 Blitz coming down, with Basilisk pounding its head, all this stuff, it actually just weathers the storm. Well, obviously bad dice happen, but if the Swarmlord was a chump, he wouldn't be in my list. He is one of the absolute MVP. In my opinion, one of the only answers Tyranids have reliably for something like a Magnus, like a Mortarion. Can you shoot them? Yeah, but we've all had that bad volley of shooting where all of a sudden you're like, ugh, and if you don't have something like the Swarmlord, then a single Mortarion can absolutely cleave through all of the Tyranids. Something that absolutely does happen. So that's my defense for the Swarmlord. Tactic-wise, like I said, I just have him holding back and guarding my gun line. He's usually behind a screen, so I'm not worried about like a unit of Berserkers getting on him. If that happens, I've made a terrible mistake. And even though in that situation, he'd actually be fine against Berserkers. Well, not fine, I guess, but he'd be okay. And then again, depending on the matchup, he shines more in some than others, but he'll be in every one of my lists. I absolutely love him. Troop choice is pretty generic. If you don't have Rippers, get them. They're like number 3 or 4 on my list of what you absolutely have to have as a Tyranid player. If you don't have them, you're running a suboptimal list, subpar list. And I think you can have success, but you are struggling to find ways to do that. Rippers, Deep Strike, they're the cheapest troop choice. and they're just amazing. They don't give up points. They are fairly independent. They're not incredible offensively or defensively, but they just give so much reach. So recon, grabbing objectives, line breaker, all that stuff, absolutely amazing. Already talked about the Termigons. Look at Caustic Blood. Anytime anything melee gets in there, you'll be giving someone 5, 6, 7 mortal wounds. If that's a unit of 9 Berserkers, you've just killed almost all of them. Traded out, sure, 25 or 30 of your Termigons, but you're ahead in points on that. You're ahead situationally, and it's 1 command point. It's absolutely incredible. Mucloids, it's your cheapest fast attack, but what I've found them to be absolutely incredible at is zoning out Deep Strikers. Obviously less the Infiltrators, but more the Deep Strikers, which is huge in this edition, right? There's just so many lists that want to be dropping in Legions or Warp Talons and the various different things. We're all aware of it, especially Blood Angels coming out. Turn 1 or 2, I usually just drop these down and give myself a gigantic bubble of you cannot Deep Strike here. This, in conjunction with the Spore Mines created by the Biovores, makes for a board presence you've never seen the likes of. It's absolutely incredible. And it's one thing to describe it, but wait until you see it happen. I've played some brutal lists, and this has been an absolute headache. The Cultist Bomb, if I get to go first, I can block off table edges like there's no tomorrow. Then I can just, they don't infiltrate them, I can just choke up the middle of the table as well. So I'm in love with them. They also hit hard, by the way. It's pretty funny. It's D3 mortal wound on a 2 through 5 and a D6 on a 6. I'm not about to sit here and tell you you need to like triple down on this and spend points on Mucloids, but I would tell you that filling out a brigade, this is your best way to do it. And it's intentional, by the way. The rest of the fast attack section is very expensive. And then it's like the next most expensive thing is like 60 points or whatever. This is 20. Max you in the face. Now let's get into my MVPs. 3 units of 3 Biovores. You can get by with 6, by the way, if you're looking for points, but at 108 points, it's so hard to find something much better than what we're dealing with here. Biovores are the absolute bee's knees. It's not just their damage output. It's not just that they can shoot indirectly. It's not just that they're fairly defensible at tough 4 wounds with a 4-up save. 99% of the time they're in cover for 3-up save. It's the fact that you can move block with these guys. Hard to hit a Latok character, not character, excuse me, but like unit, or even sometimes I'll move them to give them a -1 shooting at something because I want to miss. If they're a slow-moving army, like Death Guard, or they've got Dreadnoughts, or a Knight, or something you need to just slow down, putting 3 or 4 mines in their way, and then using terrain to block off the other points of is game-changing. Now remember, anything but infantry, for the most part, can't pass through buildings and up levels. So 4 mines, potentially, are just absolute shit-kicking base deniers. It's absolutely incredible. And then if they're not doing that, they're just pumping out mortal wounds. A big part of the reason why I like them in the heavy slot as well, by the way, is things like Molochs, Granifexes, that kind of thing. There's almost in every game, and every like 6-turn game, there's 2, maybe 3 turns where they're not doing something or they die. Biovores in most of my games, especially with great screen units like Termigons, are pumping out and doing things 6 out of 6 turns. Now, obviously, sometimes because they're such a great unit, people jump on top of and try to eliminate them, but there's just so many ways to be able to deal with that, like with the Termigons, and like having Swarmlord in the backfield kind of lurking around. And then at 4 wounds and tough 4 with the 4-up save, like I said, a lot of times units get on top of them and don't actually kill them. They're not losing guys in return, obviously. The Biovores just sit there and kind of like dick punch them with their head. But they can weather a little bit of a storm and still be standing there. It's absolutely incredible. If you are, so I talked about this earlier, if you're making a Tyranids list and you don't have Biovores, you're going to have like one of the, like, I'm going to pull down the monocle and be like, really? Because you should. You absolutely should. Moving on to the elites. Hiveguard are the second MVP, if not first. This is something where if you're running Genestealer Cult, I think you probably put in Hiveguard before you put in Biovores, but it's close. It's like, Hiveguard, indirect fire, range 36, strength 8, -2D. Absolutely incredible. And they're strangely accurate for Tyranids. They hit on 3s or rolling 1s if they're KRONOS and they haven't moved. Even if they aren't KRONOS, they're still absolutely incredible. Top 5, 3 wounds. 4-up save. Not the most stellar stat line defensively, but again, keep in mind 99% of the time they should be behind line of sight blocking terrain. These are finesse units. The games where I am a little bit too aggressive and they're too far up and they get tied up by things, I really feel it. The games where they're exposed to a Storm Raven or Fire Raptor and get nuked off the table, I really feel it. But then there's the games where I do a great job of hiding them, and they just do work. Especially with the 2-point command stratagem, where they shoot twice. That unit of 6 Hiveguard drop most things in the game. Volleys. Obviously there's exceptions, and obviously there's bad dice, but for the most part, they're putting out a hurting. I think a lot of people know about Hiveguard. That's my spiel. Hopefully you understand why they're there. And then last but not least, the elites. The Venomthrope. Now, the Venomthrope went up to 140 points to chapter approved. To me, that's about 20 or 30 points, probably too much. Certainly at 90, it was too little. The Venomthrope is incredible. I've got nothing bad to say about it. If it's still in your list, good on you. You're probably not running 2. I think you should never be running 2, but 1 is still great. 9 wounds, tough 5, character. It almost never dies. And then it has that added bonus of if it's part of a combat where you finish off the final model, you get to reroll 1s against that codex for your entire army. It's like typical Forge World, like, what? That's really good, I guess. And it's been amazing. It's been game changer for me. But I switched to the Venomthropes because A, it occupies an elite slot, which I need for my brigade. I had a Lictor there just to fill it out because that's the cheapest one you can do. And it's just terrible. It just, it would like flop its way into a cultist unit and maybe kill 5 of them or something before they disengaged and got shot to shit and died. Venomthropes are amazing. So they are targetable. They're only tough 4. They have a 5-up save, 3 wounds. So that's not the most incredible stat line. Yes, of course, they get the -1. But a unit of 4 gives off a 6-inch bubble, and then you separate the 4 of them. They're units, so they can't separate too much, but they can. And you're talking about a pretty sizable footprint that covers most of your army, whereas the Venomthrope has a 3-inch bubble off the single model. So you would put it next to your key things, and that's nice enough coverage. But this covers most of your field. Can people shoot and destroy Venomthropes? Yes. Absolutely they can. They're not characters, and they're not the hardest to hit characters. Or, excuse me, they're not the hardest to kill models. But this is, again, kind of falling into the category of the Swarmlord, where you want to kind of put them behind terrain, hide them as best you can. And then if they do get shot, depending on what's shooting them for the most part, by the way, you're kind of happy about it. It's mostly an anti-alpha strike kind of thing. If they exist beyond that into the game, that's wonderful and great, and they typically do, by the way, because they're such an undesirable target. It just feels so bad for people to shoot them. I'm just telling you, I've played dozens of games, not all with the Venomthropes, of course, but a lot with the Venomthropes, and I'll just tell you that most people do not shoot them. They have huge guns, and they just want to get rid of Hiveguard, Biovores, Swarmlord, maybe your Tervigon, and maybe they're cutting through your... They are not shooting your Venom. I'm not saying that's a mistake on their part. I am saying, though, that these guys reliably stick around to the end game. They have pistol-like Toxin Lash Whips, and they have Toxin Lash Whips in close combat. So they're effectively, on your turn, putting out 4 attacks that reroll to wound. Don't have any AP, and I'm not about to tell you, like, this unit will drop Mortarion. No, they won't. But they'll take care of Chafe. They'll take care of the stragglers that kind of make it there. They help. They're amazing. And then if they do kill something, spend the 1 command point to get command points back. That's our only way to do that as Tyranids. Have these guys, Lictors, or I think it's the Harrowspecs, Gene Stealers. Of course, Gene Stealers are phenomenal at this. Best by a country mile. But not, but behind them, in a respectable second place, is the Venomthrope. I've loved them. I've found them to be absolutely amazing. I don't think... The only reason I have 4, again, is because I had the points for it. I'm not sure what else I would spend 40... I had about 45 points in total, 44 or something like that. I guess I could do another Hiveguard, but no, I can't actually, because I need something in the elite slot anyways, and I really like the -1. I think that's a tool that we have at our disposal that you should almost always be using. I see a lot of Tyranid lists without Venomthropes and without Malanthropes, and that's obviously okay, but it's just at only 30 points a pop. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, they made Toxic Lashes 0 points as far as I'm concerned, both ranged and close combat, so I believe they're just 30 points. They're incredible. I've been really impressed by them. So that's it. So that's my brigade. I played a bunch of practice games, a lot against Death Guard, a couple against Tyranids, and some against Alpha Legion, kind of Chaos Soup type stuff. And then I had something similar to this list, taking on Frankie's Death Guard and Reese's Footdar down in San Diego. I played against Pablo's Ultramarines, Gilliman, and a bunch of stuff. Actually, that list did not have Gilliman, excuse me. Then I played against James Carmona. So a bunch of games, and I plan on playing a lot more. The only game I lost was with my list I took to San Diego that I think was a lot worse than this James by 1 point. And then I've tied my friend Shane, who I play up here as well. But otherwise, was it Shane? Yeah, anyways. So 1 loss, 1 tie, and then the rest... Or no, I tied Nick, excuse me. I tied Tyranids, and that was just for a various number of reasons. But this list is the real deal. I really enjoy it. I really like it. It's not, and what I'm loving about Tyranids in 8th edition, this is not the only list. I don't look at this and say, this is the best Tyranids you'll see. No, I don't. I don't think that's true at all. I'm loving Carnifexes. I'm loving... I do like Swarmlord in a pod still. I love Gene Stealers. I love Broodlords. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with Tyranids right now that are really good. I've been liking the Warrior Bomb. 27, Strength 5, -1 shots coming out at Blood Skill 3+. With the Tyranid Prime is scary. And then you consider the fact, that they're all 3-wound tough 4 models, so they're not the easiest thing to drop either. And they can shoot twice, so they're nuking a lot of stuff, and that's a scary, scary unit. Tyranids are real. They have some really good stuff. So if you have any questions or comments or critiques or anything, let me know. Post them in that chat, of course. And I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. So thank you so much for listening. Remember to get those lists to me. I'll put the email in the chat, or the description, excuse me. And let's talk Warhammer. Let's talk NIDS. Let's talk about whatever the hell you're fielding. I love it. I'm gone this weekend, but I'll be back after, and I'll continue to make some more content for you guys. So thank you so much. Till later.